So welcome everyone to week one for our session called AI powered development, AI powered development with Github Copilot. So I'm thrilled to kick off this brand new track. Over the next 7 weeks, we are going to learn how to code smarter and faster and more creatively using GitHub Copilot. Today is our foundation session, so we'll just cover what AI-powered development actually means. We can explore every major feature of GitHub Copilot. We're not going to do deep dive. We're just going to do like a kind of overview of what this does and what it's all about. And we would also set it up together with in our Visual Studio Code and write our very first AI-assisted program. So by the end of this hour, you should have Copilot in your Visual Studio Code if you don't have it configured already. And I want us to also have first-hand experience of how it changes the way we write code. Just a quick introduction. My name is Sarah Anueyiagu. I'm going to be your mentor for this particular cohort, and I'm joined with Olajumoke Toriola. So she's going to be taking you on some other weeks as well. I currently work with Microsoft Ireland as an AI solutions architect. So basically what I do in my role is I kind of like sell AI, GitHub Copilot, AI Foundry to Microsoft customers and show them how it's being used. Today's agenda, these are our roadmap for the next 1 hour. We have a lot of ground to cover, but I structured it in a way that we can understand it step by step. So the first 35 minutes would be more of a lecture discussion, me asking you questions, you asking me questions, and a live demo. And we'll cover what AI powered development means, and I will show you how it works in action as well. Then after 35 minutes each, we would switch to hands-on mode, which means I would expect you all to be on your computer to do the labs that I've placed there as well. So it's not going to be like an assignment to take home. It's going to be something I want us to do in the class as well. So that when you go home or after the class, you can always do more beyond what we are doing in the class. And afterwards, we'll finish with a quiz where I'm going to ask you questions based on the concept we've discussed about today. And I would also talk to you about career path that these skills can open you up to. So if you don't have Visual Studio Code or GitHub Copilot or GitHub accounts yet, don't worry, we'll set those up together in the lab session. So now let's dive in. Let's start at the very beginning. What do I actually mean by AI powered development? So this is where I'm going to ask us the question. So you can either put it in the chat or come off mute. What do you think AI powered development means? Anyone? I'm looking at the chat now. Okay, Lola is typing. What does AI powered development means to you? Coding with AI, yes, that's a good way to describe it. Any other person? Okay.
Yeah.
So
Okay, I would say sorry. I wanted
go
to
on.
type, but I just felt like because of time. So
No,
I
don't
would
worry,
say
don't
that
worry. There's enough time.
yeah, so I would say that building with building your apps or whatever solution with what's it called? With AI tools.
Good. Yeah, that's basically what it is as well. So it's more than just a buzzword, right? It's represent a fundamental shift. If you look at this slide, in how we write software today. So you can think of it like this. We went from handwriting letters, to typewriters to word processor. So each leap made us faster, but the writer still mattered. So the same thing as well with AI powered development is the next leap of coding. Now let's look at the evolution of developer tools. I'm going to take you on a quick journey of how developer tools have evolved so you can appreciate AI-powered development. In the early days, in the 1960s through the 80s, you were completely on your own. There was punch cards, then there was terminals, there was no syntax highlighting, there was no autocomplete, nothing. If you made a typo error, you might not find out until the program has fully crashed. In the 90s, brought us to what we call autocomplete in IDEs. So Visual Studio's IntelliSense was revolutionary. It could complete method names. It could show you parameter lists. For the first time, your editor was actually helping you to write code, but it only knew about keywords and API signatures. It could not understand what you are trying to do. Then in the 2000s, linters and formatters arrived. It analyzed your code statistically and enforced style rules. So this was the first time tools could find bugs within running the code, but they were all rule-based. They could not generate new code. Now, the 2010s brought some context awareness smart completion. So tools like Tab9 and IntelliCode were using machine learning trained on public code to predict what you are going to type next. They were smarter than keyword matching, but they were still limited to like short single line completions. They could not write a function for you. Then in June 2021, GitHub Copilot launched in technical preview. So this was the paradigm shift, right? So this is when Copilot, you can see it generate entire functions just from a comment. It understands natural language instructions and suggests multi-line code blocks. It is powered by large language models trained on billions of lines of code. So developers who tried it never wanted to go back. And now, within 2025 and 2026, we've entered the era of what we call the autonomous agents. So Copilot does not just suggest code anymore. It can plan the task, it can execute terminal commands, and it can create and edit multiple files. Okay, I'm beginning to see people enter.
I can say, okay, sort according to matric number in ascending or descending order.
Can we mute ourselves, please?
Well, that's the type of data we call.
Okay. So GitHub Copilot, the era of autonomous agent, as I was saying earlier on, it can plan the task, it can execute terminal commands, it can create and edit multiple files, right? It can even review its own work. You can even ask it, rate yourself, review yourself, and fix this issue. So all with your approval at each step if you want. But here is the crucial thing I want us to remember, and I want you to carry out through this entire program, is that AI doesn't replace you, it only amplifies you. Right? So you are still the architect, you're still the reviewer, and you're still the decision maker. So like AI is going to be like, it's called a co-pilot for a reason. It's your fellow pilot, right? So it's not going to replace you, but people that use AI would replace people that don't use AI. Basically, that's how I can explain it in a simple way. So the AI handles the tedious, the repetitive part, so you can focus on creative problem solving and design. So now we've been just talking about the evolution of developer tools. So what is GitHub Copilot? I'm going to read from the official definition. So GitHub Copilot is an AI coding assistant that helps you write code faster and with less effort, allowing you to focus more energy on problem solving and collaboration. So let me break that down to you. It's not just an autocomplete tool. It's full of AI coding partner. The word assistant is key. It assists you. So as I said earlier on, you are the developer making those decisions, and Copilot is there to handle the heavy lifting. So you can use Copilot in any of these four methods, right? One in your IDE, that's where you're doing your development, your Visual Studio Code, your JetBrains, your Eclipse, whatever the tool you are using is. For the purpose of this cohort, we are going to be using Visual Studio Code. So whatever preferred editor you use, Copilot probably supports it. Then on github.com itself, on the website itself, you can also chat with Copilot directly in your browser. You can get your pull request summaries, and you can use Copilot spaces as well. In your terminal, GitHub CLI has already been built in your terminal. So you can also explain like the commands that you don't understand, and I'm going to show us shortly as well. And finally, on mobile, you can use the GitHub mobile app that also include Copilot chat for coding on the go. Now let's talk numbers. Because I think they are impressive. So GitHub's own research showed that developers completed their task 55% faster with Copilot. And that's nearly cutting half of the time of your work, right? So these are not theoretical numbers. These are real productivity numbers from real developers, from real companies. Before I move forward into the GitHub Copilot features and shows on Visual Studio Code, I just want to gauge our experience, since more people have joined this call now, is how many of us already have Visual Studio Code installed? Just raise your hands up. Okay, no one. How many of us have used how many of us have, let me start with ChatGPT. How many of us have used ChatGPT before? I think it's a very common one. Copilot, ChatGPT, Claude, Okay, that's good. All right. How many of us are, you can put your hands down now. How many of us are familiar with development? How many of us have tried to write code before? And maybe just be a one time, it may be a class like this. How many of us have tried to write a line of code before? Okay, all right. And for those of us that have written a line of code before, do you still have access to the tool you used to write the code? It can be Visual Studio Code, it can be Visual Studio, it can be JetBrains, anyone? Okay, Chinyere, all right. Okay, no worries at all. I'm going to show us how to install all these things. And how many of us have a working laptop? I think that's the most important thing as well. How many of us have a working laptop that we are going to use for this program? All right. Okay. I just wanted to gauge where we are so that I'm going as basic as I can so that because the next sessions may start getting technical. So I'm trying to, set a scene here. All right. Thank you for raising your hands up. So now I'm going to talk about the GitHub Copilot features, and they are set into like 3 categories, right? So first is the assistive feature. So they work as you type. As you are typing, they are giving you suggestions. We have what we call the next edit suggestion as well that can predict where you edit next. I'm going to show us as well. And the second feature as well is called the agentic feature. So this is a game-changing feature. It means that the AI can work on its own. It determines what step to take. It makes the code changes itself. It runs the terminal command itself, but it still asks for your approval before doing anything sensitive. Then we also have the agent mode in our IDEs that I'm going to show us, the cloud agent that works on the GitHub issues. And finally, we have the customization features. So this is how you make Copilot smarter about your code base, right? So again, remember I told you Copilot is like using a large language model, right? So it's giving you like, based on what has been trained on. So imagine you are trying to build something that is in your own organization. So you need to add something that Copilot can be like, okay, this is what they do in the organization. You can connect to what we call MCP servers. You can connect to anything, or a custom instruction and customize GitHub to the way you want it to be. For example, if you want to build a web application, you want to give it, instead of Copilot to just generate a random web app with a random color, that is where you give the Copilot its instruction. I want the color to be like this. I want it to be like this for all the pages you are going to build for me in that particular web application, right? So you can also create a custom agent as well, which we are going to go deeper dive into in the coming weeks. So I'm just going to show us a quick demo of what an inline suggestion is. Okay, let me show us in person. So this is Visual Studio Code. Let me see if I can make it bigger. So this is Visual Studio Code. The first thing you want to do is create a folder, right? So once you open your Visual Studio Code, the first thing you want to do is create a folder. You can go to File, Open Folder, and you can do right-click here, New Folder, give it a name, and select that particular folder you've created. So I created a new one called AI-powered class. There is no file here. There is nothing going on here, okay? So I'm just going to do a quick demo so we can see what it looks like before I go back to my slides. So I'm going to create a new file. Let's call it what? Let's call it demo.py. So this is a Python file, right? Let me expand. Let me do this. I don't need that yet. Okay, so now I'm going to make a comment so that Visual Studio Code so that Copilot can understand what I'm trying to do. So if you want to do a comment in Python, you use the hash, right? So I'm going to say create a function that calculates the area of a circle. Now, I've done that. So I'm going to click on enter and I want us to see what happens. So when I click on enter, this is not me that typed that. It is Copilot that's giving me this particular recommendation, right? And for me to accept this recommendation, I'm just going to click on the tab key on my PC. See, done. Now it's giving me more recommendation as well. I'm going to click on the tab key again, done. So right now, I may not be a pro developer, right? But I want to write a Python function that calculates the area of a circle. So I don't need to start checking Stack Overflow, checking Reddit. How do I do this, right? GitHub Copilot from my comments understand what I was trying to do and created that. So now let us test with the radius 5. So I'm going to give another comment and write test the function. It's even giving me more with radius of 5, right? I'm going to click on tab again, and let's print out the results. So tab again, and we're going to print. So now I'm going to save this, so we'll see if it works, right? So if I want to run this, it's going to be, how do you run it again in Python? You put Python demo.py. Let's see what happens. So you see the result. The result is the area of the circle with radius 5 is 78 point this. So it gave me the answer. So this is what GitHub Copilot in action. This is what it can do, right? Again, this is just a simple math. Now imagine when you are building like a full stack application, what it can do. So this is just a sample of what GitHub Copilot can do. So I'm just going to go back to my slides. Do we have any question before I continue to yap about GitHub Copilot? Any question?
Sarah,
Yeah.
hi, this is MJ, sorry. So I just want to point people, in the meantime, there is the links to the various tools we're using for this track. So you see the one for VS Code so that you can start downloading and you can do as Sarah is doing.
Yeah.
So it's in the chat window, so everyone can get to look at the various tools we're using and then they can start downloading.
Yes, please. Thank you so much. All right, so now we've seen how Copilot. So as I was explaining earlier on, I've shown you how it looks like on Visual Studio Code. Let me just explain to you what happened there. So what happened there was what we call the inline code suggestion, right? So as you type the code, Copilot watches your context, the file that you are in, the code around your cursor, and any comments you must have written, and then generates suggestion in what we call a gray ghost text. So before you hit the tab button, that suggestion that appears is what we call a gray ghost text. So this thing can be from anything from a single word, a line of code, to a full function, right? So the magic is that you just type a comment describing what you want, and Copilot writes the implementation. So the next thing I want to talk about is, again, on the free plan, because there are different plans. On the free plan, you have 2,000 completions per month. So make sure that you are trying to be careful when you're using all these things, right? Because I know most of us will be on the free plan. The next thing I want to talk about is the next edit suggestion. So this is newer and really clever. Instead of just completing where your cursor is, it predicts where you edit next. For example, if you rename a variable in one place, the next edit suggestion will highlight the next occurrence and suggest the same rename. You just have to press tab to jump there. Let me show you what it looks like. So I have this again. I'm going to change this. Instead of area of a circle, I'm going to change it to, let's say, what should I use now? Let me just rename it to calculate things. Let me see what happens. So if I click on calculate things, it's supposed to, can you see the error is getting here? So you can see now Copilot was able to like, okay, because it changed this particular variable here, Copilot is able to like tell me like something is going on wrong and this is where you should change it next. I just have to hit tab again and boom, that is it. So when you make changes in your code as well, that's what we call the next edit suggestion. So when you make changes in your code, like changes in your variable name, Copilot is able to suggest where next you should go and change that variable that you've already called that variable before. So you don't have an issue when you are trying to run your code, right? Do we have any questions about these assistive features? Okay, good. That means we are understanding since there is no question. Right. So to finalize the assistive feature side of things, Copilot chat is your conversational AI partner. It lives in the sidebar as well. Let me show us what it looks like. So this is the Copilot chat. It also lives here as well. You can ask Copilot. There are different modes. There is the agent mode, there is the ask mode, and there is the plan mode. So for the ask mode, Copilot you can get your answer from your code base, like, ask Copilot, what is this workspace about? What is this file about? So this is the ask mode, right? So when you ask Copilot the question, it's going to check that particular function and explain to you what is going on there, right? So that's the ask mode. Then for the agent mode means you are allowing the Copilot to edit your code, to run commands for you as well. Then for the plan mode, I don't know why this is taking time. For the plan mode is you create detailed implementation plans before executing. So for example, if you have a plan on creating a to-do list, you tell Copilot your plan, it tells you what it's going to do. You can keep on chatting with Copilot until you are satisfied with that particular plan, right? So that is the plan mode. So we can see the ask mode now. I asked it, what is this file about? It was able to give me like a response on what this file is all about, right? And there is something else again I want to show us from the terminal that we can also do as well. We can do like in a quick chat or an inline chat. So if I do Control I and ask Copilot to generate a code, like let me ask it a question like, can I, no, let me tell it to also calculate using the quadratic formula of a variable or something. I don't know. I'm not good at maths. I click on enter. So now we can see Copilot is already working inline. It was able to generate a code. Can we see? It was able to generate a code for the quadratic formula as well, right? So this is an example of what Copilot chat can do as an assistant, all right? Now, moving on to agentic features, which I think is the most exciting category about this. So the word agentic means that AI can work autonomously. I've been using the word autonomous throughout today. So that's what you're going to be hearing, agentic, autonomous, right? So it doesn't just suggest, it plans, it executes, and it iterates. Let me go to this slide so we can see what I'm talking about. So agent mode is what makes Copilot feel like a real coding partner. So instead of just autocomplete tool that we just use it for, this feature made you go like, wow, this game has changed, right? You can describe what you want in natural language, add a login page to my app. It's going to do that. Create the REST API endpoint for user registration. It's going to do that, right? So Copilot analyzes your entire code base. Again, these are the things you are going to be doing. So I'm not going to go deep dive because each of the week we have some deep dive sessions on where you're going to use this, right? So I'm just going to explain the keywords. So I want you to understand these things I'm talking about. So when you go further down the line, you're able to like, oh, that's what Sarah talked about in class 1. So Copilot, after analyzing your entire code base and your project structure or your existing code patterns, it starts executing, it starts editing the files or creating a new file. It even does things like installing packages that you may need to run tests, right? Like that as well. And where it gets really impressive is that if something goes wrong, a test fail, or even a command line through an error, Copilot self-corrects itself. So it reads the error message, it understands what went wrong, and it fixes it. Additionally, you can always review everything Copilot is doing, right? If I go back to my code here, remember, I have to keep this or I can undo. So that is still me being in the loop. I have to either review this, approve this, or I can undo and remove it. So it's still keeping you in the loop. You are still the one that is approving it, right? So that's an example of what agent mode is all about. And what are the agentic features that how can we do this, right? So we have the Copilot Cloud Agent, which I showed us earlier on. We have the agent mode. We have different mode, actually. We have the local one. So now this local one run the task within your Visual Studio Code charts. It doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't go to the cloud. Then we have the Copilot CLI, right? And we also have the cloud. So the cloud mode is delegating your tasks to GitHub Copilot Cloud Agents, right? So that's the difference between these 3 modes. Any questions so far, or should I just keep going? Please feel free to ask questions, okay? I want us to be able to, I know this is all new, but I want us to be able to like converse. All right. Okay, and finally, I'm going to talk about customization features before we go into the lab session. So out of the box, Copilot is good, but with customization, it becomes great for your specific projects. So customization is what separates a basic Copilot user from a power user. The first thing is custom instruction. You create a file called GitHub Copilot instructions.md. Again, we're going to go deeper dive into it in the upcoming weeks as well. In it, you write things like, this is what we use in our organization. We use TypeScript with strict mode. So this is where you give custom instructions to the GitHub Copilot. So it does not generate a Python code for you or a Java code. You just tell it the particular code you use. We only use C# in our organization. So every code that Copilot is going to generate is going to be only C#, right? So this is with your own strict guidelines, right? We use Prisma for database access. So Copilot reads this file every time it wants to generate something, and it adjusts its suggestions to match your organizational standards or your team standards. And this is available in all the plans, so including free and whatnot, right? Then the next one I want to talk about is Copilot Spaces. So you can think of it as a curated kind of context collection on github.com. So you group together the files, the docs, and the specs that are relevant to a particular task. Then you ask a Copilot within a space. It has all the context available, so its answers are much more targeted. Then we have what we call the MCP servers. Again, we'll go deeper dive into it. It's an open standard that lets you connect Copilot to external tools. And I'm going to give you an example of what I use MCP servers for. So we all know I work for Microsoft, right? Which means people are going to be asking me questions about some of the products we have. Normally, if I'm doing my research, because I don't know everything at the back of my head, I get answers from Reddit, from Stack Overflow, from LinkedIn, you name it, right? But that doesn't mean that that's what Microsoft answer is. It's people's opinion, right, about a particular product. But when I want to get Microsoft confirm best practice, instead I want to know that Microsoft don't have this, than giving a customer a wrong answer, I connect to our Microsoft Learn MCP server, right? So that way, GitHub Copilot or any other Copilot I'm connecting to it only gives me answer from Microsoft Learn documentation. That's an example of how to use an MCP server, right? So it's not giving me answer from, because if I ask ChatGPT or Copilot or Claude, it's going to be giving me answers from various sources. But if I want to limit its answer to only Microsoft Learn, because when I'm answering these customers, they believe that, oh, it's Microsoft that is replying them because I'm representing Microsoft, right? Or I'm representing Textiles or whatever company it is you're representing. So to make sure that my answer collaborates with what Microsoft says, I use the MCP server and I request for it to give me the link where it copied the answer from. So when I'm replying to my customer, I'm only replying based on Microsoft documentation. Now, that's for Microsoft. Now, imagine you as an AI-powered GitHub user in your organization, right, connecting to an MCP server that your organization have or an API that your organization have. So when you're answering questions or when you want to use it to do things, it has that context, right? That, okay, this is how we do it in our organization. This is how the hospital that I'm working for works. It's not giving you vague answer. It limits the hallucination. It's not giving like, oh, in the hospitable industry, this is how we do things. No, it's going to give you like, in Sarah's hotel industry, this is how we run things, right? So you want to customize your Copilot to be able to give you answers that is, recommended for you in your own space. The next thing I want to talk about is prompt files. So these are where you can have like a reusable recipe card for Copilot. So there's some things that you can be asking Copilot every time you log in, right? So you can create a reusable kind of instruction with additional context and use it in your Copilot. So instead of every day asking Copilot to do a certain thing, you already know the prompts that you need as well to ask Copilot that thing. So you already have it saved and you can reuse the prompt as well. Right. So again, we'll dive deeper into this, I think, in week 4 or so. I just want you to know that they exist and what they do for now. Then finally, I want to talk about the GitHub Copilot plans we have. So we have the free one, and I want you to see the limitations. So when you start playing around with it, you are very aware of what is going on. So for the free plan, you have some premium request usage per month, some completions per month, and the models that you have access to. Same thing for students. If you have a student account at your student's at ansu.com or whatever, you can also sign up for the free student one. And if you want to pay, this is what it looks like again. Then I also want to talk about one of the best things that Copilot have is that you're not locked into a single AI model. You can choose different models depending on your task, right? So we have the OpenAI model, which most of us know as ChatGPT. That's where it's coming from. We have the Anthropic, which most of us know as Claude. Me myself. And we have the Gemini one, which is from Google as well. I think I have to mute that person. Who is that? Chisom, do you have a question? Your hands are up. Okay. I guess it's just one of those things. All right. So now sometimes you may wonder, how do I choose the right model, right? So we have this website here. I think I'll share it with us as well, where you can play around with. It's free. It has a free lyric limit where you can ask questions and see what answers it gives you. So now for this test, I'm going to be using the OpenAI GPT-4o and this model just to see which one do you think is better for this kind of questions, right? So I'm going to click on this and let's see what happens. So we can see one of them is faster than the other, right? And one of them is longer than the other. So as a developer, this is where, like, you have to make that choice as well when you are trying to choose a model. Go on.
Hi, Sarah. Yeah,
Hello.
there is a question from Chisom. Let's address
Right.
that first. Okay. Yeah, feel free to unmute yourself, Chisom, and please ask your question.
We can't hear you, Chisom. Probably something wrong with
Yeah.
your microphone.
Or you can add your question on the chat window. Should be fine.
Okay.
Yeah, so Sarah, her question is, do we
Okay.
need to install the Copilot CLI on our VS Code to start using it?
So it depends on when you installed or what version of Visual Studio Code you have. I'm going to show us how to do that. It's part of the labs. Also, can we switch between two accounts on the same laptop? Yes, you can do that as well. You just have to switch. I will show us in. I think this is my next slide. So I will show you some. All right. Okay, brilliant. Thank you for the question, Chisom. So I don't want to lose my train of thought here. So this is where you can also, let me put this in the chat, where you can play around and see and play around with different models as well. You can also do this as well in the GitHub Copilot side of things. If we come here, let me expand the screen. We can see that we have different models, right? So we have auto, again, depends on the if you're using free or not. So I'm using my company's one, so I have access to like the latest models. But for your own case, you may not see all these models, but you're going to see some of the models that you have available for a free user. So I have GPT 4.1, I have Claude, and I can also turn on more models if I want to, like DeepSeek, like Llama, like Meta, right? So I can turn on more models if I want to as well for GitHub Copilot. So let me go back to the slides, and so we can move to the practical side of things. So again, the different AI models available in GitHub Copilot. You can do your test to see how many tokens is given me, and make that decision yourself. Even as an IT admin, or if you're an IT admin, these are where you can make those decisions as well and give recommendations to your managers, like, oh, I think we should turn on this, we should turn off this as well, because you can turn some things on and off in your organization depending on the price, right? So now let's go to setting up our GitHub Copilot. So if you've not installed VS Code, please click on the link that MJ sent earlier on so we can do that. It's part of the prerequisite before this call, but I think some of us didn't do that. So that's why I want us to do it on this call. Before you go, I want you to install Visual Studio Code and have a GitHub account. How many of us have a GitHub account? Can you raise your hands? Let me see. If you have a GitHub account. All right, so maybe we need a little bit of extra. All right, that's good. Most of us have a GitHub account. That's very good. So I want us to install Visual Studio Code if you haven't, and sign into GitHub. So let me show you how to sign into GitHub. So once you are here in your Visual Studio Code, you sign in here to your GitHub account, right? So this is where you sign into your GitHub account here. You go to Accounts and you sign into your GitHub account. Then for GitHub Copilot, it should be installed in most of these, what's it called? In most of this, in the newest GitHub, but if it's not, that's fine. You just search for GitHub Copilot. Yeah, so if you go to GitHub Copilot, I have it installed already, so it's there for me. So you should search for GitHub Copilot and make sure that it's the official GitHub Copilot that you are installing, right? So in the newest GitHub, in the newest Visual Studio Code, it should be installed automatically. But if it's not, you should look for the one that has GitHub and install the GitHub one. And check for GitHub Copilot chat as well. If it's not installed automatically, this should be installed automatically after you install GitHub Copilot. So that should have you up and running with everything I have here in my demo. So based on what we've discussed so far, do we have any questions about GitHub Copilot, what it does? Are we beginning to think about the big picture, what we can build with GitHub Copilot? If we're going to build our next application, are you ready to build an application using GitHub Copilot? If you are, type yes in the comment section. Let me see how many of us are ready to build an application using our GitHub Copilot. No one is typing yes. Are we not ready? Okay, very good. Very, very good. Yeah, so I want us to install this. How many of us have this installed already? Because we have 2 labs to go, and I want it to be I want all of us to do this together. Not as an assignment, but I want us to do it together. So we have 15 minutes. Let's get going. Still installing, that's fine. So if you have it installed, let me move to what I want you to do next. Oh, I need to talk about this before we go to the hands-on lab. Sorry about that. Okay, so let me talk about responsible AI while we are installing our Visual Studio Code and our GitHub Copilot. So before we jump into the labs, let's talk about responsible AI, which is, I think this is the most important slide in today's session. So AI hallucination is real, and they happen with Copilot a lot. So Copilot can generate a code that looks perfectly correct, proper syntax, reasonable variable names, clean structure, but it's actually wrong. So it might even call an API method that does not even exist. It might produce a certain algorithm that is an error, right? So the key insight here is that you should always review and test your AI generated code before you push into production. So confidence does not equal correctness, okay? Because AI is very confident in its answer. It tells you like, oh, Sarah, you did a good job. This is perfect, but please make sure you correct it first. And you can also reduce hallucinations, again, by what I mentioned earlier on, using Copilot to MCP servers or the tools or some web links that you have, like only focus on these web links to give me my answers. Also, nice instruction. Do not give me answers that are not on these websites. Do not give me answers that are not in Microsoft MCP Learn server. So things like that will help you. So prompting well would help you to reduce the AI hallucination, right? The second part of the limitations that I want us to talk about is that it may not understand your business context, right? So it may not know about your proprietary systems unless you tell it through custom instructions or context. So it cannot also guarantee security, right? So it may suggest code that has like an SQL injection vulnerabilities, or some code put some tokens that is not supposed to be there as well, right? So don't use AI to replace your architectural decision making, right? Make sure you're the one that is making that architecture decisions yourself. So it does not replace your expertise. Remember, it's just a co-pilot. It is your fellow pilot. So make sure that if you have some regulatory compliance to adhere to, like GDPR or HIPAA, make sure that your AI is not going above or beyond what it's supposed to do, right? So it's a tool, it's not a replacement. And finally, on the legal side of things, you own the code that you write with Copilot. That is clear. But be aware that Copilot was trained on public code, and it may occasionally suggest a block of code that closely matches with something in a public repository, right? But the good thing about GitHub is that it provides what we call a duplicate detection filter that you can enable to block such suggestions. This is very important, especially for people that are going to be using it in their business. If you are trying to use it beyond the free suggestion. So remember that you always review, always test, and understand every line of AI generated code before you commit it. If you're not like a pro developer and you don't understand something, just because it's working does not mean you should push it. Ask Copilot to explain to you why it used a particular line of code, what that code does, and to be sure that you're not doing something you shouldn't be doing. Okay, so make sure that you are always looking out for these three things when it comes to GitHub Copilot. So if you have downloaded your Visual Studio Code and you have your GitHub set up, I want us to write our first program. So I'm going to leave this on the screen and looking out for any comments or any questions that we have so far. Please, as MJ mentioned, don't forget to, I think I put the WhatsApp link as well where you can join, and don't forget to fill out the form, because if you don't come for 70% of the class, you may not get the certificate afterwards. So make sure that your attendance is, well registered. All right. How are we going? How are we looking? How many of us are done installing? Raise your finger up raise your hands up if you're done installing. Okay, looking at that's fine. Second lab, I'm going to send it to us via WhatsApp, and I want us to submit it today evening. So for the quiz, can we stop what we are doing and answer this question on the chat? So please take a pause with your labs, take a pause with your installation. I want us to answer this question. So the first question, which keyboard shortcut accepts an inline Copilot suggestion? So put your options: A, enter; B, tab; C, space; D, control, enter. Put the option in the Teams chat. So which keyboard shortcut accepts an inline Copilot suggestion? Only one person has answered. Please, can you pause what you're doing and just answer the question on the chat? I'm expecting more answers. Okay. Just 2 people. I know we're more than 2 people. Please, I want us to participate. All right. The answer is, drum roll, tab. So the answer is tab. When I was giving us an example, the keyboard shortcut that accepts an inline Copilot suggestion is actually tab. So the second question is, what are the 3 categories of Copilot features? 1, basic, advanced, or expert; assistive, agentic, and customization; free, paid, or enterprise. So just type A, B, or C in the chat. B. So many of us are going for B. All right, that's correct. And question 3, in agent mode, which actions consume premium requests? In agent mode, which action? What's the answer? A, B, or C? Premium request. Okay. All right, so the answer is actually C, only the prompts you type. All right, and final okay, the fourth question, sorry. What is the most important practice when using AI generated code? A, accept all suggestions immediately. B, only use code from the latest model. C, always review, test, and understand the code. Yes, we are all right. The answer is C, always review, test, and understand the code. And finally, what Copilot plan is available at no cost to everyone? Students, pro, free, or business? Good, free. All right, excellent work, everyone. Perfect scores all around. Thank you for engaging. So again, finally, the key takeaways here is, let's recap the 5 big takeaways. AI-powered development amplifies your skill. It's a partner, not your replacement. Assistive agentic customization, know what each of them offers. Agent mode is the game changer. We will use it extensively in the next coming weeks. Multiple AI models are available, so match the model to your task. And again, responsible AI is non-negotiable. Always review, always test, right? So next Saturday, we'll dive more into mastering Copilot chat. And these are the careers. I want to show something important. So this is not just a workshop series, it's a career investment. And right now you're at level 1, the foundation. You just installed Copilot. So by the end of this 7-week program, you should be at level 2, a practitioner. You master prompt engineering. You use agents mode for complex tasks, set up custom instructions. So this is where you start standing out. So within 6 to 12 months with consistent practice, you should be able to reach level 3, which is an AI augmented developer. So this is where it gets exciting, right? You build your own full stack application with AI assistance. You can connect to MCP servers. You can even lead sessions like this as well yourself, right? And finally, you can become an engineering leader in the next, again, AI is moving very fast. So if you are going along with the long game, right, you can become an engineering leader, making architectural decisions because you've done this within 1 to 2 years, right? So these are the roles that again you can look out for. Ignore the amount there, it's in dollars. It's an AI generated slide. So these are the things you should be watching out for in this particular kind of what you're going to learn from, what you're going to take from this, right? So these are the kind of roles you should be looking out for. Again, solutions architects, application developer, DevOps, prompt engineer, software engineer as well. So these skills you are building in this program, they're directly applicable to every single one of these roles. So you're not just learning a tool, you're also building your career. Again, these are the resources that you can use to